Okay, friends, looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone, to Medicine Buddha. Particularly, welcome to those who are new to the practice. I don't know, let's see, do I see people who are new? Um, but in any case, welcome. This is Medicine Buddha. I'm Lama Rod. I use he, him pronouns. I am hanging out and living on the ancestral lands of the Muskogee Creek and Cherokee people here in the ATL. Um, and yeah, and this is Medicine Buddha. If you're new, this is a guided practice based on the tantric tradition of Medicine Buddha, which comes out of the Tibetan tradition of Buddhism primarily. So wonderful, yeah. I think Eric has posted the Google Doc link for prayer requests, and so you can add prayer requests to the Google Doc, and I'll offer those later in our practice as well. Um, Thank you to everyone who joined me this past Saturday. Um, we did a couple of things this weekend, but first Saturday for our kind of like our practice leader first training session, which was really wonderful. And so those folks will be taking over um, while I'm away in September, and they will fill in after September when I'm not able to do practice. Um, I have a little bit of a busy fall coming up. So it'll be nice to have people step in, you know, for practice when I'm not able to hold it. So I'm excited about that. I figured how many people we have. I think maybe 10, 11, or 12 or something. So a good group. And I'm excited about the, uh, the different kinds of practices that I think people will be bringing. And the different people, too. It's a really diverse group of folks uh, coming on board to hold this space. And, this is really just kind of like I realize that this is really just a newer or a new uh, kind of tradition here starting um, with the Medicine Buddha. So I really like how it is expanding. And this is how lineages of practices expand. They are passed on, you know, and and people, other practitioners are allowed to add things to it. It's like the story, the children's story, Stone Soup, uh, which is the story about like this village. It's kind of like the medicine man, not the medicine man, the music man, in a really interesting way. But in Stone Soup, someone shows up in a village and says, "I can make you the most amazing soup you've ever had out of a rock, a stone, right?" So he gets a cauldron and put it over fire, get the water going, and just throws the rock into the soup. And he's like, "Here we go, just stone soup." And then people start coming around. They're like, "Well, you know, that's fine, but maybe I have some like extra potatoes that maybe we can just throw in, with that water and the stone, and maybe it'll just make it a little better." So someone gets potatoes, and someone else comes along and says, "Oh, I have some carrots." Then they put in the carrots, and so on and so forth, right? Until after a while, it's this really nice um, soup that just kind of started with the stone, but how that stone inspired people to offer more, to make it better. And so this, I think that's what a lineage is. It's like people coming along over time and adding things to it, which is exciting, super exciting. Um, to experience that. Now I'm starting a new practice this weekend. It's kind of a, I think it's a secret. It may not be a secret. I don't know. But anyway, um, I'm kicking it off on Friday, um, online. So there's going to be a public online talk on Friday evening Eastern Standard Time. Um, the practice is Chinrezi, which is a practice. So Chinrezi is not necessarily a Buddha, but a bodhisattva associated with love and compassion, care. The Dalai Lama is said to be an emanation of Chinrezi, which is only to say that the Dalai Lama deeply embodies um, this experience of love. Right? That's really what an emanation is someone who deeply embodies the characteristic of a particular deity. Um, I think it's and well, Chinrezi is another name for Avalokiteshvara, and it's also Chinrezi is also an expression of Kuan Yin as well. So that's really exciting. Anyway, starting that practice, just working with a group of people this weekend to get that practice, and we'll um, I'll share more about that at some point in a couple of weeks. So another practice for us to get into about love. Also, thanks to everyone who came to Divine Mother practice on Sunday. It was intense, but it was fun. So thank you for that. And before I continue, the question box is below. So feel free to go ahead and put questions there, and I should have time to get to them. However, if there's a question that you would like answered before we begin practice that would actually enhance your practice, go ahead and put that in the box. So don't put it in the chat. Let's keep the chat free just for like messages and greetings and everything. And prayer requests in the Google Doc, questions in the question box, so we keep it organized. It's better for me. Okay, wonderful. What else? What else is going on? Now there was something about Beyonce I wanted to share. I got some really positive feedback about my impromptu talk about Beyonce. Just let me just make it clear. This is not the first time I've given an impromptu talk about Beyonce. But maybe I'll let that pass for now. If I get back, if I start, it'll be another hour. So let's not go down that road right now. Yeah. What else is happening? Um, Tonight I wanted to do a little bit of candle work. So I have my candle here. Um, so I wanted to do something around joy and healing. And I think one of the kinds of practices that I'm not the best at is joy practice. I think joy, not sympathetic joy, but just like awakening joy can be difficult um, to work with, right? My doorway into joy has been gratitude, right? Um, and over time, you do get to a place where you're just able to choose joy. right? To experience joy. Like you have a level of mastery where you're able just to to direct your attention into particular experiences, right? But you can't do that without the space. You know, the cultivation of space that comes with working through the levels of meditation, beginning with concentration, um, and then moving into, you know, kind of a mindfulness, you know, concentration. Um, well, mindfulness is more of a loose kind of concentration practice. Concentration practice isn't like super popular, I've noticed. I don't see a lot of people. There are concentration retreats done, but not a lot. Actually, I've only seen one um, before that happens regularly, you know, once a year. Um, a concentration practice, you know, and then relaxing into mindfulness, which in Tibetan traditions we would call it shane or shamatha. You know, just another other names for mindfulness. And then of course mindfulness opens up to insight of vipassana. The vipassana can move into a kind of an open awareness. Open awareness can really actually lead more into the tantric systems of meditation, which are Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And I started actually, beginning of my practice, I started in Dzogchen, the great perfection. Mahamudra being the great seal, the great gesture as well. Um, but without training in these levels of meditation, it's really hard to get to this place of having the agency to choose mental experiences. You know, because many of us are still bound in a kind of reactivity uh, uh, to the material in our minds, the energy. Right? There's no agency there, right, to not choose to respond. It's just a reactive, habitual response, right? That habitual reactive response to the material in our minds, thoughts, emotions, and other energies, actually what is what feeds narratives. Those narratives gives rise to realities, right? And so when we begin to disrupt reactivity, develop the agency to hold, right, instead of reacting, then that's when liberation really begins to awaken for us. That's when we get a sense of what freedom is. When you have the agency to choose responsiveness over reactivity. Right? I am thinking and talking a lot about this these days because this is one of the core teachings of New Saints, which is my next book, New Saints, which will be a whole thing. You thought Radical Dharma and Love and Rage, you know, was a parade. wait till no, wait till this page turner drops. But yeah, you know, that freedom actually means agency. Freedom is agency, right? Agency to choose. Responsiveness instead of being bound in reactivity. On Sunday in Divine Mother practice, I talked a lot about Majaya, and I don't know if I have them. I do. I have lots of pictures of Majaya. I don't know if I have them accessible. I don't have any accessible. But Majaya, who was one of my teachers who I actually never met in this life. She passed about 10 or 11 years ago now. She passed when I got out of retreat. So it's been about 10 or 11 years ago. And one of Majaya's core teachings has been um, consuming, like consume the suffering, consume everything, consume everything instead of everything consuming you. And really, essentially, what that means is disrupting reactivity, right? Holding space, moving into responsiveness. That's how we consume the world, which is what some of you studied with me in the spring, consuming the world, right? I consume the world by training in responsiveness, not in reactivity, right? And that takes time to do. Um, that's basic meditation training. Um, as I was saying too on Sunday, I actually said this on Saturday too. A lot of meditation teachers um, don't actually know how to meditate. You know, mindfulness, uh, Buddhist meditations, whatever, what have you. Um, a lot of people actually don't know how to meditate, um, and a lot of these training programs that are really popular in mindfulness and in Buddhist meditation, secular mindfulness. I'm sorry, I should say secular mindfulness because mindfulness is Buddhist meditation, but secular mindfulness and Buddhist meditation, or sacred meditation, maybe sometimes I call it. Um, a lot of these training programs um, are called like teacher training programs, and really that's really not the truth and the case. Like you're not a teacher. Is teaching is about mastery, not in regurgitating, right? So mastery is accomplished through the wisdom and experience of practice, not through intellectual pursuits. Like intellectualism is part of mastery, but it's the experience of practice that actually becomes the teacher and the guiding energy for one's teaching. You know, if you haven't deeply trained and earned the experience of practice, then you're limited. You're limited to what a text or a book says. But when you're actually authentically training and practicing, then your practice becomes actually boundless. It's boundless wisdom, clarity, awareness. Because practice is a gift that keeps on giving. You know? So you graduate from a teacher training program, let's hypothetically say this program is like 8 weeks long. I should be more generous. I should say a year or two. That doesn't make you a teacher, honestly. You know, even if you've been practicing that long, it still doesn't make you a teacher. You know, it's my opinion, but it's just about being like careful about this. Like it's like what am I saying? I'm saying that um, you won't understand this kind of freedom that I've just been talking about, the non-reactivity. You won't understand that if you haven't experienced it, right? If you haven't experienced it, then how can you communicate that experience to others? Which is what I'm saying, right? I'm just kind of reading through something now. Um, oh, here's a question in the chat that I'm going to attend to. So I've been grieving the loss of relationship for 2 years now. COVID has really helped with this grief stick around. Yep. I've been doing grief practice for a while now, but there are any other practices which can help me disrupt my stuckness and thinking about what could have been, could be if only, and accept what is. Right. Um, yeah, it's, I think the hard answer to this is that we have to stop giving grief an agenda and a timeline. Because this is going to look at you and say, fuck you. It's really how grief works, right? It's hard to understand grief because it's such a profound, deep, expansive experience that actually is tied in to so many other experiences that we're not even conscious of, right? Um, to allow grief to be. When I think about grief, it's like I stopped giving it an agenda. I stopped demanding anything from it. I just said, you know what? Take the space and time that you need, right? Because you're not the only experience that I'm having, because I'm also having experiences of joy and gratitude, right? And I've been in those places. I have grieved the loss of really important relationships for years. I've had experiences where it's just, you know, um, the longing, like, intensifies. And one of the things that I begin to understand is that so much of my longing was actually a way that I was trying to distract myself from the ways in which I needed to tend to myself. There were ways in which I needed to care for myself that I just relied on the relationships to do for me, right? To know who I was outside of relationship to others, right? And that became the work, the labor. Is like, who am I, right? And I can't keep choosing relationships to run away from myself. Uh, so there's also this belief that you won't ever have that experience again. And if you are attached to that idea, then you won't have the space to notice and experience when another important relationship emerges, because you're still attached to the longing and the grieving around the last relationship. You there is a difference between sometimes we think we're grieving and going through the process, but actually we're so attached to the grief and demanding so much from the grief that the grief doesn't actually have the space to change and transform. And so the grief just stays around because we like stick it in place through our fixation, right? And we're afraid to allow grief to really move through its process, mostly because we get to this point where we're self-identifying with the grief. Like, like we get to this point where it's like, well, this is who I am. Like, who am I if I'm not grieving, right? Um, for those of us who experience a lot of social marginalization, collective social marginalization, right? Social oppression, collective social oppression, the problem that many of us have coming out of these communities is that we come from communities that have self-identified with pain and trauma, historical trauma, struggle, right? And we say, well, this is who I am. Like for me, to be black means that I am perpetually struggling within a system that is always trying to annihilate me, right? And part of my work had to be to let that go. Like that's not who I am. The trauma isn't who I am, it's an experience. In the same way, the grief is just this experience. This relationship that ended was just an experience, that I have to let go. But if I let it go, then I have to ask the real question, which is like, how do I take care of this deeper experience of suffering? The real longing, the real suffering, right? And again, for some of us, there's intense suffering when we're trying to let go of our self-identification with suffering, right? Because who are we if we're not identifying with that suffering, with that pain, right? And for some of us, to not identify with the suffering means that we have to deal with the guilt of not dealing with that suffering that everyone else around us is dealing with and struggling with, right? It can make us feel like we're betraying communities when we're experiencing joy and everyone else in our community is struggling. And again, that comes from self-identifying with the struggle. Suffering isn't what we should be using to cultivate a sense of belonging to community. I would rather use joy and gratitude as foundations for belonging than suffering and collective suffering. Joy, gratitude is much more generative. It's much more expansive and fluid than suffering. Suffering becomes really rigid and hard, right? And if you see people not having the experience of suffering, then it's easy to choose violence against those people, because you will see those people as a threat. You'll see them as perpetrators, as whatever, betraying the cause, the movement. If you're not hurting as much as I am, then it's like I had this relationship several years back. It was one of those special relationships that ended over texting, right? It was one of those fun things, one of those fun cultural phenomena that has arisen for my generation and younger and older. It's like, we're going to end this relationship through text. I wasn't the one, it was someone who broke up with me in a text when I was at Target. And part of what pisses me off is when people do shit like that and you're in your happy place. Target is my happy place. I go to Target and I feel good. And I don't have to buy anything. It's not where I necessarily go. I'm just in Target, right? And that makes me feel good. I don't know, it's something they put in the air or the lights or the music. I don't know. Whatever it is, please don't send me a text, about bad news while I'm at Target. That's a really basic rule that I want people to follow. Anyhow, so I'm at Target, and I get broken up with over text, and so obviously I was really hurt about it, but I'm a Buddhist, right? Like I've been doing this for years, and I've been practicing and training and working with suffering for years. I'm good at it, you know? So it wasn't like I was lost in the heartbreak. I was like, I didn't lose myself in the moment, right? I was like, oh, this sucks. This hurts, right? And, but there's still so many things to be grateful for, like Target, so. But the point of the story is that, well, the point I'll just skip to one point is that don't break up with people over text. Please don't do that. That's ridiculous. Like, don't do that. At least call someone. But the real point here is, or the real point of why I'm telling the story, is that, so when I got the text, I was like, okay, like what went, what's happening, what went wrong, blah blah blah, you know, and having this deep processing experience over text at Target. And so finally, at the end of the exchange, um, I, I just told the truth. I was like, yeah, this sucks, but like, this has still been a really good experience. I really appreciate you. And the time, dating a couple of months at that point, I really love this experience. And regardless of how much I feel bad, I'm still leaving with a lot of gratitude and joy having had this experience, right? And that was true. I'm still grateful for the relationship after all these years. That wasn't really well received. that wasn't well, how could it be well received? It was happening over text. And the feedback that I got was that how dare you be happy when I feel like shit. And that was it. That was the last communication. And I was like, well, how can you dare interpret my experience? you know? That I acknowledge the pain, I acknowledge other things, and this is my experience. That like, in the words of Beyonce, you haven't broken my soul. Just in case you thought Beyonce wasn't gonna get into this tonight, like you're not gonna break my soul. You know, um, and that's sometimes what people want. They want you to be broken. And quite frankly, I'm Lama Rod. Like like it's like I understand too much and have experienced and awakened to too much for this idea that like my soul is going to be broken, that like I'm going to lose myself. I don't do that anymore. It's not what I do because I've been training for all these years. This is what happens when you train seriously in these practices. Like there are experiences that are just clear and straightforward, right? That like I have this capacity to not choose being overwhelmed by suffering anymore. You know, like I choose not to self-identify with suffering at this point in my life, right? And I have the capacity to do that, right? And so the best that I can do, is show up to the pain and the hurt and take responsibility for the hurt I may have caused. But that doesn't mean that like I'm gonna throw myself in the pit of suffering to join you. That's actually not what a bodhisattva does either. No matter what the bodhisattva can travel to a hell realm to help people, but that doesn't mean the bodhisattva is in hell and experiencing hell, right? Like we have to like get that clear. Like the bodhisattva isn't like choosing suffering and being lost in suffering to help people. Like the bodhisattva is holding the experience of suffering, so they have the agency and the capacity to meet you and to help you. Like a bodhisattva can't help you. People can't help you if they actually have no idea what the hell they're doing for themselves. You know, like you're not gonna break my soul. You know, the moral of the story basically is, but please don't break up with people over texts. Like, while they're at Target. That's really the real point of the story, right? Well, you have to get sassy about this. You know, you have to. This is called. We've talked about this before. Spiritual confidence. Like you know what your capacity is. You know what you're doing, and you own it. Like I don't do this anymore. Like I don't choose suffering. I don't choose to be in suffering to make you feel better about the situation, right? Because I'm trying not to suffer. You know, I'm trying not to suffer, right? And it's just like we have to get out of this thing. I see this. I've seen this many times before in other people's situations as well, where it's like again, if you're not as miserable as I am, then I can't trust you. We have to let that go. You know, I was like when I saw people who weren't miserable going through the same situations I was going through, I am like, what are you doing? Because I need to learn whatever it is you're doing. You need to teach me because I am drowning in shit. You know, it's when the suffering becomes comfortable, like the suffering becomes familiar. And it's just like you have to disrupt that. You know, that's one of the most sinister expressions of samsara is when we start choosing the suffering over the potential for joy and liberation, right? Because for many reasons, we choose the suffering, right? But we stop believing that there's a different experience to be had, you know? There's joy in everything, and death, and trauma, you know, and surviving bodies. There's stuff. There's an experience of freedom, liberation that we have to start choosing, or we just start attaching ourselves to the suffering over and over again. But in any case, going back to the question that was offered, to let grief have its way, you know, like to allow yourself to actually grieve, right? And I don't want to be so intense about this, but you have to stop using COVID and everything else as an excuse. I mean, I don't want to say that, but like, you know, I kind of feel compelled to say it. It's like, it's convenience, right? But like, it's still quite possible to choose joy, freedom, liberation, even during the apocalypse, right? Um, but you have to, there's a fierceness, right? There's a fierceness that we have to choose, and that fierceness is about learning to consume everything, right? Consuming, again, it doesn't mean that we're bypassing, erasing, or wiping out. It means that we're learning to hold space. We're learning to allow, right? That's meditation. Meditation is learning to allow it to happen. And I don't have to respond. Well, I don't have to respond. I don't have to react, right? But I have to experience it. I have to notice it, right? But I have to experience it, but not hold on to it and not self-identify with it. You know, again, I can't say this is who I am. This is just an experience. You know, grief is just an experience. It's just something that's happening, right? There's loss, there's change, right? I'm trying to navigate who I am after something has changed. That's grief, right? and just let it be. I grieve every day, for all kinds of things, for relationships, past relationships, for, I grieve for 2019. Right? I was just joking with a friend about how much I took 2019 for granted. Um, but like, these are just experiences, right? You let them go. These are just clouds passing through the sky of the mind, as we've done before. You know, that practice, sky like mind. You just let it pass, and then then on top of that you do the morning work. The morning is out the way that we embody the grief and perform the grief. Move the energy of grief, right? Through our rituals and practice, through our crying, right? Through the ways in which we create boundaries and so forth, right? Um, to let go of fixating on the past means that we are choosing to deal with the present moment of discomfort. To let go of trying to label the discomfort and suffering and saying, well, this is what this is and this is what that is. Just let that go and say, this is suffering. And I'm just going to show up to it. I'm going to consume it. Right? If you allow yourself to be in that kind of relationship with suffering, then the other experiences come more into focus. The joy, the gratitude, whether happiness, the contentment, all that starts coming into focus. That I can... What's our favorite song? Is it Labouche? Labouche. Sad and Free. Sad and free, sad and free. Eric, find that song. Put the link into the chat. Sad and Free. You know, which I love that song. We used to play that. We do that for Love and Rage, right? Sad and free. I can be in grief, and I can also be experiencing joy at the same time. Joy doesn't push the grief away. Joy holds the grief. Black box. Yeah. Right. Sad and free, and you won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. See, it's just like practice can just become a music lyric. You can string a bunch of lyrics together and call it drama. Everybody, yeah. Set and free. You know. This is all really exciting. I think this is really, really fabulous, right? Um, Sad and free, and it's okay. It's fine. We have to stop. We have to let go of these like over romanticized ideas of what freedom is, particularly in a body in the relative world, right? You know, Being free doesn't mean I'm not suffering anymore. It means that I understand the illusion of suffering, but suffering is still there. Like I'm just not responding to it. I'm just not excuse me. I'm just not reacting to it anymore. You know, it's not the main event in my experience any longer. Yeah, and everything is intense and overwhelming right now. And I think what a lot of people are experiencing is, well, they're realizing that their practice isn't rigorous enough and resilient enough, right? Again, because a lot of people haven't actually been taught how to practice. how to seek mastery. Everyone's like, oh, Lama Rod, how do I train in all this? It's not magic. Well, it is magic, but even magic is there's a repetition to magic, right? And when we're talking particularly about meditation, right, which for me is the core liberatory practice. Like there won't ever be a practice more powerful than meditation that I do, right? Meditation is my core liberatory practice. And to train in meditation means just showing up over and over and over again. When you're bored as hell, you keep showing up. When you're fucking like overwhelmed or frustrated and pissed off, you keep returning, right? You keep holding, you keep noticing, like you keep breathing. All of that, that's all it is. It's repetition, returning over and over and over again. Everything that arises becomes the path, right? Like everything is asking to be held within awareness. That's all it is, right? And if you're not willing to do that, then you're actually not willing to get free. There's no form of magic, that's going to completely liberate us from the cycle of birth and rebirth. That's going to completely help us to transcend delusion altogether. Like there's no spell that can do that. The only spell that I know is labor. Right? It's work. Right? The work that I have to do, that I have to choose to do. I wish that someone, can just come along and say, you know what, I'm going to take on some of this labor, this individual personal labor. I'm going to watch your mind for you, right? So you can take a break. I would love that. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's not how this works, right? I can't hire people to watch my mind for me. I have to do that for myself, right? But it's not right, but it's okay, because I'm going to make it anyway. And that's Whitney, that's Auntie Whitney there, just in case you needed a reference. So, practice, right? Practice. So taking all of that, everything that we just moved through, and just kind of bringing this into practice, right? I want to start with gratitude today. Actually, like let's see if we can get into joy, get into some light, see if we can link, medicine blues consciousness to this experience of joy, and see where we get to. Let's just put the boat out to the sea and see where we land. Okay. And as always, allowing your body to come into a position that feels appropriate for you, right? So let's bring some attention to the seats. Just begin noticing the weight of the body, making contact with the seats. noticing how the seed is rising to hold you. And so noticing in this moment how the seat, as it holds us, is actually expressing care for us. The seat is actually caring for us in this moment. Shifting our attention now even deeper, touching into the earth, noticing the energy of the earth, which is awakened energy, right? The consciousness of the earth. And the consciousness of the earth being really this expression of stability and foundation and nurturing and sustainability. Right? Noticing even the earth rising to hold us and everything, and how that is such a deep expression of care from the earth. And even in this moment, if we're like feelings if we're carrying too much, there's a burden, there's fear, anxiety, sadness, despair, noticing that and letting it go and offering it down into the earth. And understanding that this offering isn't hurting the earth, right? That the earth can hold and neutralize and ground these energies that we struggle with, because the energy of the earth, consciousness of the earth, is just energy. So when we let go of what we struggle with, it's just energy being offered back into energy. It's like a drop of water being dropped into an ocean. That's how really insignificant our offering of this kind of emotional energy is. It's like this is just a drop of water that we struggle to relate to, being offered to a boundless expression of water. Right? And just work with that for a moment. Offering into the earth. What is it? Despair, fear, sadness, worry. Offer into the earth. Let it go. And for me, a really tangible way I work with this is just like imagining that my body is emptying this energy out. Maybe the bottom of my feet or whatever, being emptied out of my body, drained out of my body, down into the earth. Like I'm being washed out, like something's being poured on top of my head, and I'm just being cleansed and washed out into the earth. Just a few more moments here. Again, offering. Stop thinking about, giving the earth too much to hold. This is not what we're doing right now. We're not overwhelming the earth. We're realizing that all the material in our minds, the thoughts, emotions, are the same material, the same essence of Earth's consciousness. So it's essence returning back to essence in a way. Our suffering and discomfort is just energy that's misunderstood, that we struggle to relate to in a way that feels liberatory. right? A little while longer. So returning our attention back to the earth, down into the earth. Again, noticing the energy that we relate to, or the aspect of earth consciousness that we respond to, be it the experience of foundation, fluidity, groundedness. But just notice it. What does the earth feel like to you in this moment? And we're going to move into our earth breath practice. So continuing, I invite you to shift your attention to your tailbone. Right? Just down to your tailbone, to your seat. And this is the root chakra, essentially, the tailbone. And the root chakra is about home, right? Groundedness, belonging, safety, and so forth. Sense of being held. Right? Now turning our attention back into the earth, we're going to start inhaling the energy of the earth into the root chakra, into the tailbone, right? And we do that by imagining that we're inhaling from the tailbone, the root chakra, and it's like we're inhaling up from the earth. So we're inhaling the energy from below into the root chakra, the tailbone. And we're imagining that the root chakra is filling up with this energy that we're inhaling from the earth. Right? So just focusing on the inhale, inhaling from the earth into the tailbone, the root chakra, and then just letting the out breath just be for now. But the filling up of the root chakra from the earth. And that's going to help awaken the root chakra, but it's also going to help us to experience more groundedness, more settledness. Just a couple more breaths. Breathing up into the root chakra. Releasing. Now let's go a little further. So as we exhale now, I want you to imagine that you're exhaling from the root chakra up into the heart chakra. Right, so inhaling into the root chakra, the base of the spine. As we exhale, exhaling up into the root chakra and feeling now the root chakra, feeling the heart chakra opening and filling up with the energy from the earth via the root chakra. Right. So as you're continuing with the breath, I invite you also to add a contemplation here, a reflection. And the reflection is reflecting on what you're grateful for. What are you grateful for? It can be anything. Well, try not to be grateful for violence, but it's like something else, like puppies and ice cream or something. Right? Or Beyonce, whoever floats your boat, right? But what is your gratitude? What are you grateful for? And that's going to help to begin to open up the heart chakra even more here. And there's a fluidity, a warmth, a light that may be part of your experience, but it doesn't have to be as well. So feeling this connection to the earth is a big part of this. Like I feel rooted through the earth, down into the earth. Right? Feeling my heart expand, open. And you can just continue letting things go, like offering things down into the earth as well. So all of this is happening. And this is where, this is where we begin to really invite or awaken, like the consciousness of Medicine Buddha here, right? And this is like the magic here, right? It's when we start evoking the energies that we really want to embody. So as we continue, we're gonna just move into our mantras. Just a short, offering of our opening mantra, which is Om Mela Sangye Kino Soha, beginning with Om, right? And then we're gonna move into our main mantra for Medicine Buddha. So as we're doing this, our first mantra is about inviting Medicine Buddha, right? This energy from the earth, this energy of gratitude that we're working with, we're going to start aligning it with, or what's another way of thinking about it? We're like transforming, or just maybe just realizing that not only is this earth energy and gratitude energy, this is also the consciousness of medicine Buddha. The consciousness of medicine Buddha is also the consciousness of the earth. The consciousness of the earth is also our consciousness. There's the sameness, the oneness of everything. Dare I say, everything is everything, as Lauren Hill was saying. And to be honest, the miseducation of Lauren Hill is still, I think, is still going to be better than Beyonce's album. I don't want to get into it right now, but that's how I feel. So beginning with and then going into Omanasage Kino Soha. Okay, and you see all the translations there. Beginning with Om La Sange Kino Soa. Om La Sange Kino Soha. Om La Sange Kino Soha. So having invited the consciousness of Medicine Buddha into this space. We turn our attention to our main mantra. Deata Om Bekenze, Maha Bekenze, Rasa Sumungate, Soha. Right? So again, like this, I pray for the end of pain and suffering, and the root of pain and suffering. And I release the energy of this prayer out to all the world so that we all may be liberated. And may it be so. So the root energy of the main mantra is liberation, disruption of suffering, right? And that's what we're training in as we're chanting. That's what we're reflecting on. But we're just sitting within the frequency, of a dharma that was only created to free people from suffering. And so continuing with everything that we're doing and adding the mantra on top of it, okay? We begin. O Deata Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumungate Soa. 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 대하다운 배연세 배연세 마배연세 라자 수문가 대소와 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 대하다운 배연세 배연세 마배연세 라자 수문가 Turning our attention to our prayer requests, and as always, I invite all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, our guardians of the land, all the elements, our ancestors, our descendants, all saints, deities, all beings who can ally with us to bring about the fruition of what we most deeply desire. I call you into the space to hear, to witness our prayers, and to act with us and on our behalf to bring about the fruition of these prayers. We begin by offering prayers for Asir, Rachel, and the children, that I may skillfully support them with true compassion. Offering prayers for healing of my body, mind, and spirit. Offering prayers for Shirley as she continues to care for her aging parents with health issues, and now her aunt who is hospitalized. Offering prayers for Bren, who is having physical health issues. We're offering prayers for Ramona and her family in their grief. Offering prayers for Elaine as she deals with health issues. Offering prayers for my friend Bev. May her skin cancer be operable and may she heal quickly. Offering prayers for my son. May he feel safe and become more open to healing and growing. We're offering prayers for Imelda, her peace and her health and her family as they hold her through this time. Offering prayers for my friend C and all people who are experiencing mental anguish, isolation, and feelings of inadequacy and betrayal. Offering prayers for my daughter, may she be at peace and know joy. Offering prayers for Lama Rod and our homecoming circles. Offering prayers for all sentient beings. May all be free. May all know peace. Prayers for Bibi. May her campaign succeed and bring power and spirit to DC. Prayers for all who are exhausted. May we be renewed. We're offering prayers for my wife, Courtney, and her family as they're grieving the loss of her dad, Dave Ferguson. Prayers for my safe travels this week to Chicago for training. Prayers for our clients, lifting up all sentient beings that are suffering and remembering the light. Prayers for myself as I navigate a difficult time in my life. May I access ease and clarity. Prayers for those supporting me. Prayers for my Aunt Angela, who is experiencing multiple health difficulties. Praying for healing for Firefly, who is in the ICU with a brain injury in a foreign country. We're offering prayers for Kalivia Maka, recovering from surgery. Prayers of protection for people who are afraid of their neighbors and who have suddenly decided to hate people who are different. Prayers for myself, who will be undergoing surgery this Friday. Offering prayers for myself to heal and all navigating the complex medical system. Prayers for all to find and feel agency. Prayers for the New York school system to restore funds to help all students. Prayers for Tricia and all working with PTSD. Prayers for my father, TM, who will be having surgery this Friday, and that he may recover and heal swiftly, and assistance with his ongoing dementia. Offering prayers for myself as I navigate a complicated and disappointing relationship with my mother. Prayers for clarity and energy in my creative process, and prayers for all who are feeling afraid and alone. Prayers for myself, Amy, as I am finishing up a difficult job, starting a new relationship, and attempting to take care of my mental health. Prayers for Cecilia, who is recovering from a severe stroke, and her daughters who are caring for her. Prayers for Sean, who is going through a mental health crisis, and his partner, Gabriella. Prayers for Tom Crana, Hava Bailey, all the courageous people in office, running for office, working for fair and free elections so that we all have a country that might actually pursue liberation and support for all. Prayers for all full Prayers for a full recovery from knee surgery. Patience and not fear and worry. Prayers for my family. Prayers for Brittany and Grenier. May she and all others wrongfully imprisoned be set free. Prayers for ongoing health issues, post-concussion syndrome. Prayers for suffering I've been feeling for my job. Prayers for my mom, Elsa. May she have all that she needs and know that she is loved. Prayers for my brother Joe, whose wife has asked for a divorce. May he find peace and healing. Prayers for all struggling. May we all find refuge. Offering prayers for Curry as she transitions into a new job. Prayers for Alicia as she seeks a new job as a screenwriter. Prayers that I can feel confidence and know that I can face whatever challenges may come with grace and joy. Prayers for Shane, hoping that they will get the visa stamp to Japan and be able to join their partner in their new home. Also offering prayers for Mike for his happiness and for his clarity and direction in life. Offering prayers for Desiree for continued pregnancy without obstacles. Also offer prayers for Daniel that all obstacles around his family are removed as quickly as possible. And as always, we pray for the continued disruption of all systems of violence and discrimination and power that perpetuate suffering. And in the spirit with the medicine Buddha Tantra, that we pray that all beings receive all the resources that they need to be well, happy, safe, and healthy. We pray that in this world, may we continue moving through this difficult time, and may we awaken as quickly as possible into a more equitable and healed and happy world. And may all beings, including us, may we all get free as quickly as possible. May it be so. And returning our practice into our mantra and just imagining that we begin to radiate this energy of earth and this energy of gratitude into the prayers that have been offered, into the fruition, of what is good and virtuous and equitable for all those we've offered prayers for. Okay? So we begin again. O Dea Daum Begenze Ma Begenze Raza Sumungate Soa 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 Dea Daum Begenze Begenze, Mahabegenze, Raja Sumagati Soa, Beata, Begenze, 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 Begenze, Mahabegenze, Raja Sumagati Soa. And so shifting our attention again back to the seats, noticing the weight of the body, making contact with the seat, how the seat's rising to hold us. And then again, shifting our attention down into the earth. Connecting once again to the consciousness of the earth. And as we transition into our last mantra, just briefly, into the mantra of Mother Durga, Durga Ma, the great fierce expression, one of the great fierce, powerful expressions of the Divine Mother. As we shift into our mantra, just beginning to feel how the earth, the energy of the earth, the consciousness of the earth is rising to hold us and protect us. Can you feel that even before we start the mantra? Can you feel the energy, the consciousness of the earth rising around us, kind of holding us, encapsulating us? Right? That's the energy of the earth. It's also the blessings of the mother is also the blessings of medicine Buddha, is the blessings of everything at once. Feeling that protection, like a barrier, perhaps. We shift into our mantra, Dum Durgaye Namaha. Salutations to she, the mother, who is beautiful to the seeker of truth, but terrible in appearance to those who would injure devotees of the truth. We begin with and then going into the mantra. And again, shifting back down to the earth, releasing whatever you're still holding on to down into the earth. Turning our attention now to Shantideva's prayer that we find in the chat box there. Reciting this 3 times together. May I be a protector to all those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right, friends. Ooh, I'm going to answer this one last question in the chat box. This is the most important question ever. Unrelated to practice, but quite frankly, everything is related to practice. Did you like the Break My Soul remix with Madonna? Um, mm, you know, not particularly, but what I did like was the Vogue remix. I really enjoyed. But it's interesting who gets mentioned, right, in these kinds of lyrics that people do when they're like paying homage, right, to people, everyone who came before, and like everyone, in the Vogue remix who got left out. I don't know. It's just me. You know. But yeah, it's just something. I think it's just like, I guess it's a way that like these like high level performers are like paying homage to each other. Like, yeah, Madonna did a lot, and I think it's important, you know. I think it's just like this act of respect to be like, come and let's do this song together, or let me just mention you in this song. I think that's really, I think it's important, you know. I think it's hard, difficult. I can see this. I can equate this to like the Dharma teaching scene as well. Like, you have like all these new folks, teachers coming along, and maybe sometimes it's easy to say, oh, like those pioneers, that first generation. I'm talking Western teachers, right? That first generation of teachers who like really just kind of stepped into helping to translate Dharma for this country. We can just say, oh, like they did such a great job, but they also fucked up a bunch of stuff, and so we're not going. It's like I've heard that before, but like there's still. I would speak more specifically for my lineage, for Tibetan Buddhism, for the Kagyu folks. Like the first group of Western lamas, like had nothing to to rely on. They didn't even have English translations of anything, so they all had to like deeply, intensely learn Tibetan and figure out how to learn it and where to go to learn it, right? And then go into this whole process of 3-year retreat, which nothing really had been done to think about how to like make it more appropriate for like Westerners coming from a different culture. Like they just kind of had to like, you know, break all this ground. I'm internally grateful, regardless of all the drama that kind of has come from that generation. But like they did something that made it possible for me to do this. So like Madonna and Beyonce, but Madonna made it possible for other female pop artists to come about and be respected as well. And I think that's important, because Beyonce hasn't done a lot of pop, and when you enter into this genre, you just pay homage. It's like you did this important work, and thank you, but this is what I'm doing. And that's kind of how I see myself as well. It's like, thank you for all the stuff that you did because it made it much more easier for me to get access to the teachings. But this is what I'm doing now, which may be different, because my generation of teachers, we're not so much about trying to get the Dharma here. We're about trying to integrate the Dharma into culture, into community, So anyway, that's all I wanted to say there. But thank you everyone um, for your practice, and I will see you all next week, for sure. One day I'm gonna do some type of like music dharma thing. I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I just want to get together and listen to music and talk about dharma in some way. So we may figure out how to do that online, as well. So I think this is important. Music and liberation are really important things to think about and to practice. So we'll make it work. We'll make it happen. Maybe in the fall, after retreat, um, we'll have some space for it. But in any case, I hope to see you Friday night for the online talk. You can find that talk, somewhere. I'm sure you'll find it. Okay, we'll probably email something out through Bhumi Swarsha. And also I'm emailing stuff out this week as well. My team is as well. Okay. All right, that's it. Well, thank you. Be safe and practice. Continue practicing. Okay. Bye, everyone.